Name, Bill Smith. Address, 103 Main Street, Small Town, USA. Height, 5'11". Weight, 185 pounds. Who is this person? Why, he's the average American. Bill makes a comfortable $32,000 each year. His car gets 18.9 miles to the gallon. He reads 4.2 novels every year, each with 482.73 pages. He receives 9.7 gifts every Christmas, and he brushes his teeth 1.9 times every day. The average American. Today, it seems we hear a lot of this person, someone who is supposedly like all of us, and yet not like any of us. After all, how many men do you know with 2.7 children? No, Bill is by no means real. His composition is not one of flesh and blood. Instead, Bill is the product of cold and heartless data. Born of a national almanac, Bill is nothing more than a statistic. But the characteristics of Bill Smith and the way we interpret them are highly reflective of our society's misuse, abuse, and general overuse of statistics in our society. As Darrell Huff tells us in his essay, How to Lie with Statistics, he writes, Americans use statistics like drunks use lampposts for support instead of illumination. He was referring to our unfailing dependence as we as Americans put on statistics. He continues, we prefer to record and measure ourselves with numbers, and what we can't measure, we assume not to exist at all. But what are these mystic symbols and figures? And more importantly, how do they affect us? Humorist Artemus Ward once said, it ain't so much what we know that gets us in trouble. It's the things we know that ain't so. Now, such was the case in the government. Our government is faulted with many problems. Statistical misuse is perhaps one of the greatest. This was clearly demonstrated in March of 1983 when the computation of the unemployment rate was changed to encompass military personnel. Now, this had a significant impact as the number changed from 10.6 to 10.1%. Some people said this was a political ploy of President Reagan, trying to make himself look good in the public spectrum, while others claimed this was a highly justified move since, after all, military personnel were employed. But I think there is a more important question which needs to be answered. Look at what happened to the number. It changed. Look at what happened to the way the number was computed. It changed too. But what happened to the very real problem of civilian unemployment, which we all assume this number to represent? It had not changed at all. It all goes back to what Lester T. Thoreau said in his Basic Theory of Economics. A difference is only a difference if it truly makes a difference. Many times a difference in a number does not represent a difference in the real world. This was the case in the late 1970s when housing was taken out of the Consumer Price Index. Now, as contradictory as it might sound, while inflation continued to skyrocket, the inflation rate actually stagnated. In our society, we even misuse something as simple as a baseball statistic, denoting one player is good, batting .350, while another one bad, batting .150. But what do these figures tell us about his moral character, his interaction with other players, his leadership abilities, any of which any coach will tell you is necessary for the well-rounded player? While numbers may be convincing, so much of what they imply, as Ward said, simply ain't so. Perhaps we can all relate to standardized tests, where the quality of one's education is measured by the quantity of correct circles on a piece of paper. You may not be aware of how misleading statistics are on the university level, but look when a university advertises that 95% of our needy students receive financial aid. Sounds good, doesn't it? The truth behind this claim is the fact that the university is the one who determines who is needy and thereby allocate aid accordingly. Perhaps the greatest inadequacy surrounding statistics lies not in what is wrong with these numbers, but instead with the way we use them. Numbers are only numbers. Many times we forget this. We forget that there are very real humans and very real human conditions behind these statistics. And yes, we are all affected by them. The only solution to our statistical dilemma is to better understand what a statistic is and what a statistic is not. We need to more adequately comprehend what a statistic can do, but what a number cannot do. So when you go home today, read your paper, eat your meal, watch TV. You don't have to go looking for statistics. They're all around us. But this time, be aware of them. Train yourself not to passively sit by as seemingly innocent numbers are flashed before our eyes. Learn to question what hides behind those numbers. I think it's interesting and indeed fascinating that statistics have come to dominate our decision-making in America today. But don't get me wrong. I am not saying that statistics are bad, but statistics can be misleading. And without careful management, they can do more harm than good. Carl Tucker summed it up best in his book, The Data Game. He wrote, "Statistics and lists are obviously useful tools. They, in their own way, can tell us what happened, but never why that mattered. And in the end, that is the only question worth answering." So as you leave, remember, 3/4 of the people always comprise 75% of the population.